Hello, Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we're going to look at the AWS Resource Access Manager, RAM. So I want to talk a bit about account isolation in AWS for a minute. You might hear something called a multi-account strategy in AWS. This means you can use different AWS accounts to separate concerns like administration, billing, or to minimize the so-called blast radius around any mistakes or security vulnerabilities. Now, using a multi-account strategy is great, but it could present a challenge when you need to create and share resources across accounts. That's where Resource Access Manager comes in. If you have multiple individual AWS accounts or an AWS organization, you can create resources centrally and use AWS RAM to share those resources with other accounts. This means that you can reduce operational overhead because you won't be duplicating resources in each of your accounts, which can be a real pain to manage. Now, you can't share every type of resource in AWS using RAM. Currently, at the time of this recording, these 8 services have resource types that you can share out. So that's AppMesh, Aurora, Code Build, EC2, EC2 Image Builder, License Manager, Resource Groups, and Route 53. So let's take a look at an example here. Let's say we want to launch EC2 instances in a shared subnet across accounts. Say we have 2 AWS accounts, Account 1 and Account 2. And we have a private subnet in Account 1 that we want to share. Then Account 2 is able to see this private subnet in Account 1. This lets Account 2 create resources in Account 1's private subnet, like EC2 instances. What's important to understand here is that Account 2 has no control over Account 1's private subnet, so it can't alter the subnet in any way, with the exception of adding tags. In other words, the subnet isn't copied from Account 1 to Account 2, it's just shared. Now I want to show you one more example in the AWS Management Console using RDS. So here I have 2 different accounts, Account 1 on the left and Account 2 on the right. Account 1 has this Aurora database cluster called Database 1. Now I want to be able to clone that database in Account 2. Now you can see here, I don't have access. We can grant access using RAM. So over here in Account 1, we'll go to the RAM console, and we'll select Create a Resource Share. We'll give this a name, call this Aurora Cluster, and under Resource Type, you see all the different resource types that we can select. We'll select Aurora DB Clusters, and you'll see that Database 1 is available for sharing. So we'll check that checkbox, and you'll see it's selected here. Now we want to allow an external account. This is what's referred to as a principal. I'm going to enter the AWS account number for account number 2. So I paste that in here and click Add. So now we're going to be granting account number 2 access to this cluster in account number 1. We can skip the tags and we'll create the resource share. Now you can see I have one here in the deleted state, and that was just me testing this prior to recording the video, so you can actually ignore that one. The one we're interested here is the Aurora cluster share that we just created, whose status is active. Now you'll notice if you go over here to account 2 and click refresh, you don't see anything. Well, why is that? Well, we have to go into the share here, and you'll see that the shared resource is in the associated status, but the shared principal, the account itself, is in the associating state. RAM works by sending an invitation from Account 1 to Account 2 that you have to first accept. So we'll go to RAM in Account 2, and under Shared with Me, under Resource Shares, we'll see a pending invitation. We'll click on this and click Accept Resource Share. It'll go from pending, click OK, to accepted, and if we go back to RDS and click Refresh, we now see Database 1 shared from account number 1. So if we select this, and under Actions, we can create a clone of this database and start working with it in our own account. So that's just a simple example of how we can use AWS Resource Access Manager to share resources across accounts or within an AWS organization. So that's pretty much all you'll need to know for the exam about RAM. Feel free to reach out with any questions. If not, move on to the next lesson. Thanks.